each other through it. Come on and see, good movement draws good movement.
Welcome to Good Movement Draws Good Movement, the podcast where farmers, ranchers, and rural folks can grow relationally through awareness, understanding, and effective communication. Hey, it's T. I'm your host, and I, along with my guests, will be covering topics related to drawing good movement. Things like self and social awareness, brain science, positive psychology, extending grace, and so much more. We'll share tools that can help you understand why you are the way you are, why others are the way they are, and how you can use that to step out of self-told lies with grace and compassion to draw good movement in conversations, relationships, and life in rural America. Let's go draw good movement. Welcome back to the Good Movement Draws Good Movement podcast. I heard about Doctors John and Julie Gottman in a book that I was reading or consuming. Sometimes I listen, so I say consuming. And I can't remember what book it was or who the author was. It was either Gabor Mate or Warwick Schiller. I just can't remember. But I heard of the Gottmans, and they're more than 40 years of studying relationships and connection and communication and what makes relationships last. And recently, I've been studying the 4 specific patterns that the Gottmans found that show up when things are starting to go sideways or are headed south. The Gottmans call them the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse. Sounds dramatic, but what they are is warning signs. And they're a play on the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse referenced in the book of Revelation, which those are conquest, war, famine, and death. The Gottmans' 4 horsemen, like the 4 horsemen of Revelation, show up in the end times as a predictor of the end of a relationship. That doesn't mean that if one of these things shows up in your relationship that it's doomed, because let me preface with saying that all humans at one time or another resort to one of these 4 horsemen. That doesn't mean it's the end of your relationship. The Gottmans' 4 horsemen are criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. And John learned that while we're all capable of busting one or 2 of these out occasionally, when they are prevalent in a relationship and consistently used, not just once in a while when you're overwhelmed or pushed to the edge, but consistently used, it's an indication that the relationship may be on its way out. So we're going to go through these 4 horsemen, what they are, what they sound like, and then there's good news at the end of this podcast. The first horseman is criticism. Criticism is when we attack the person instead of the problem. So criticism sounds like, you never help me with chores. You always leave your dirty boots in the hall. You're so selfish. You don't care about this family or this farm. So let's say your spouse forgot to grab that tire that's been ready at the shop for a week on their way home. Like, it's been there a week, they forgot it, and this isn't the first time they've forgotten it. You're frustrated, you're tired, and instead of saying what you need, it comes out as a character jab. So it's not about the fact that they forgot. It's that they're lazy or don't care. I can't believe you don't care enough to pick up that tire. That's criticism. Criticism usually starts from a valid complaint, but it gets twisted when we are stuck in fight, flight, survival mode. Now, criticism is different than critique. The Gottmans are not saying here that you can never give feedback or that you can't provide critique. Criticism, again, is when we attack the person instead of the problem, whereas a critique is going at the problem while still being connected to the person. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But the second horseman, contempt. It's mocking, it's sarcasm, it's eye rolling, it's straight up name calling, and other things of that nature. Wow, nice of you to finally show up. You're just like a blister. You show up when the work's done. You'd think after 20 years you'd know how to do that right. You're ridiculous. So maybe you're sorting cattle together and your partner lets the wrong animal by. You sigh. Your eyes roll. And you mutter something obscene under your breath. It's not about the sort. It's about the disgust or the superiority behind it, that I'm better than you. I can't believe you didn't catch that ever. Contempt does a really good job of poisoning our connections. And according to the Gottmans, contempt is the single biggest predictor of divorce. With good reason. If you're constantly using contempt in your relationship, why would your partner want to stick around? Or if you're constantly on the receiving end of contempt, why would you want to stick around? The third horseman is defensiveness. So protecting yourself instead of listening. This looks like making excuses, blaming, or firing back. And it sounds like that's not what happened. Well, maybe if you'd told me sooner. You're always blaming me for everything. So maybe your spouse says, I'd sure appreciate it if you'd text me when you're running late. And you respond with, you never text me when you're running late. That's defensiveness. You're not hearing the other person. You're dodging your own responsibility. Defensiveness feels protective because it feels like we're deflecting some of that blame, and nobody likes to accept blame. But the fact of the matter is, in every interaction that we're a part of, we have some responsibility in that interaction. And so while defensiveness feels protective, it actually fuels more conflict, because if you're not able to accept some of that responsibility and you're constantly placing it elsewhere, especially if that elsewhere is on the person you're in relationship with, that is going to fuel conflict. The fourth horseman is stonewalling. Stonewalling is shutting down, withdrawing, going silent, leaving, and it sounds like silence or walking away or whatever. Or, I'm done talking about this. End of discussion. So you're mid-argument and one of you just stops responding. Maybe your arms are crossed, your eyes are averted, you're totally checked out. Or maybe if you're really good at stonewalling, it looks like you're completely in the conversation, but you are nowhere near it. It's not that you don't care. It's that your nervous system is overloaded and you literally cannot engage. Stonewalling happens when one person is flooded with emotions, overwhelmed, heart racing, breathing shallow, and the only thing that feels safe is to shut down and exit the interaction. So those are the four horsemen: criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. If you start to notice them in your conversations, that's a cue to slow down, to ground yourself. Because the good news is there are antidotes for every single one of the horsemen. The Gottmans found that each horseman has an opposite, a healthier behavior that repairs the connection instead of breaking it. So for criticism, the opposite is gentle startup. So focusing on your feelings and needs instead of attacking the other person. So instead of you never listen to me, you can try, I feel ignored when I'm talking and you're on your phone. Can we talk when we can both be more focused? It's about owning your emotion and your needs instead of pointing fingers or attacking the other person's character. Contempt. The opposite of contempt is appreciation and respect. Contempt thrives where gratitude is nowhere to be found. So, building a habit of noticing what's going right is one way to counter contempt. For example, hey, thanks for checking water this morning. I really appreciate how steady you've been this week. You can't be contemptuous and grateful at the same time. Your brain can't do both at the same time. It can only be grateful or feel or contemptuous. And so when we focus on the things that we are grateful for or what the person has done to help us, we can sit in that gratitude and not in contempt. Defensiveness, the opposite of defensiveness, as I alluded to earlier, is responsibility. So even if you think it's mostly the other person's fault, look for your small part. Instead of saying, that's not what I meant, try, you're right. I did not say that clearly. I could have done a better job of explaining this. And when one person drops the shield, that can change the whole tone of the conversation. Have you ever been in conversation with someone and had them take responsibility for their small part or their big part in something that has happened? It is like, oh my gosh, that is so refreshing. Because again, defensiveness it's a protection for us. None of us wants to accept blame, so we try to place it elsewhere. But when we do, we have the power to change the whole tone. The whole tone. And when that happens, not only does the other person feel refreshed, we feel refreshed too. Stonewalling. The opposite of stonewalling is self-soothing and repair. So when you feel that stone wall start to go up, when you start laying the bricks or the stones and putting up that wall, take a break. Like literally take a break. And I mean, essentially that's what you're doing when you're stonewalling is you're taking a break. But take a break and communicate what you are doing. I need a few minutes to cool off. Can we finish this later? I really want to talk about this, but I need a minute. Can we revisit this at a later time? Just let the person know what's happening. Because when you're in that emotional overwhelm, even if you stick with it and try to power through that, you are not fully there. So taking a break, grounding yourself, soothing yourself, you can come back to the conversation fully present. Again, the goal isn't to walk away forever. It's to calm down enough so that you can stay instead of shutting down. So we've talked about the Four Horsemen: criticism, contempt, defensiveness, stonewalling, what they are. We've talked about their antidotes for ourselves when we see those things coming up in ourselves, what we can do that is not harmful, that is actually helpful for our relationships. But what happens when we are on the receiving end of the horsemen? There are a few things that can help. No matter which horseman shows up, these things will always help. The first is regulate. If your heart's pounding, take a walk, get a drink, step outside, touch grass, take some intentional breaths. You cannot connect if your body is still in fight or flight. And what might happen when you're on the receiving end of one of these horsemen is that you actually use one of the horsemen in response, stonewalling. And grounding is so important. It helps us calm ourselves, regulate our nervous systems so that we can be present in the moment. And once you are regulated, like it's so important to regulate because the second helpful thing when you're on the receiving end of a horseman is don't take the bait. Don't match the energy. And You cannot help yourself from matching the energy or taking the bait if you are not regulated and grounded. You can't control how someone else shows up, but you can control whether you match that energy or you provide a sense of calm in the moment. And in order to do that, you first have to regulate. So, step 1, regulate. Step 2, don't take the bait. Don't match the energy. Step 3, the third thing you can do, stay curious. Always, always, always in all things, be curious. Ask yourself, what might they be feeling underneath this reaction? What could have happened to them to cause them to respond in this way? Stay curious because, I can't think of like a specific example, but I know this has happened to me. I interact with someone and they're short and snappy, and I'm like, man, they are just a bleep. But then I find out that something really bad has just happened in their lives. And they haven't been able to speak it out loud, but they're carrying it and it's causing them to be short-tempered. And then it makes sense as to why they're short-tempered because they've just had this horrible thing happen. And here I am thinking they're a bleep because I wasn't curious. So in all things, at all times, stay curious. The Gottmans say every relationship has conflict. That's a fact. Every relationship will have conflict. That's normal. That's what happens when you're in relationship with other humans. But what matters is how you handle the conflict. If you recognize yourself in any of these horsemen, you're not broken, you're human. Awareness is the first step toward change. It's the first step towards good movement and drawing good movement. So, as I wrap up this podcast episode, I would encourage you to take a look at these 4 horsemen. Which one are you prone to using? For me, it's stonewalling. I, for sure, am a stonewaller. It's easier for me to just retreat inside myself sometimes than it is to engage. So, for me, it's stonewalling. But what is it for you? And notice this. And then next time tensions start rising, take a breath. Look for which horseman just rode in and choose the antidote instead. And that's how we keep good movement in our marriages, our families, our communities, our operations, by noticing, by grounding, by making a different choice. And with that, until next time, draw good movement. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm so grateful for you. If you found value in this episode, I'd love for you to share with others who might also benefit from tuning in. Share by word of mouth, send it in a text, take a screenshot and post it on social media, or share however you prefer. And if you haven't already, hit the follow or subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Until next time, draw good movement.